Those guys in Vegas know what they're doing, huh? They knew overtime and the under, and it was the line opened at 47.5, and the game ends 25-22.
That's a little
in the weirdest way it could possibly happen.
We knew it would get there.
Woo, Nelly. There have only been 13 games in NFL history that have ended with the final score of 25-22. 6 of them have been decided in overtime. 6 of the 13, including last night's game, have been overtime games that end 25-22.
The uniqueness of that score probably makes the team that's ending with the ball have to push for that touchdown.
Think of it.
Which allows for that opportunity.
Regular season or in postseason as well. That was the only Super Bowl, obviously, to be finished 25-22. But what a hell of a game it was. And now you have... This is officially a dynasty, and heading into this game, I thought it would have been safe to say it's a dynasty anyways, but for whatever reason, they want to say 3 championships in 5 years constitutes your dynasty. I think everything that the Chiefs have done to this point in the modern era of football, it should absolutely win, lose, or draw, and that Super Bowl should have constituted as a dynasty because what they have done to this point has been something that is supposed to be impossible, yet here they are in the most improbable years of it happening. They end up winning that 3rd Super Bowl and go back to back.
I think that's probably right. If we're going to use like an actual defining principle, 3 titles in 5 years as a dynasty, I think that's fair. I think that's like if we're trying to question, what is or isn't a dynasty, 3 and 5, 3 and 6. I think as long as you're talking about 3 and 10. But 3 in a window, right? Whatever window you want to classify it as. Because do we look at that Bills run as a dynastic run? I would almost say we do.
We remember it as the dynasty that wasn't. But you go to four straight Super Bowls.
And I saw something this morning. This insane as this is kind of like the Bills are kind of like the Trailblazers of the 90s. Where they were the 2nd best team in basketball for a while, but they just kept running up against either the Pistons or the Bulls.
I think the 49ers are that team right now.
It's actually the Bills. The Bills' point differential in the last 3 years is staggering. Staggering. It is them alone with no one close. Then the Chiefs and the Niners are tied. Right next to the at spots 2 and 3 or spots 2. But the Bills are so far and above expectation, but they've just run into what is the one thing that they've run into? It's been Patrick Mahomes every single time.
But they've now, and I would say that it's the Niners because they're 0-3 in Super Bowls with 2 different head coaches, and they're actually getting 2 Super Bowls and conference championship games. Like, think of the Niners getting to conference championship games. It's nuts to think about.
How many they've been to over the last
it's
10 years?
8 since their last their Super Bowl win in 95. It's the last 94-95 season. They've been to 8 conference championship games and have 0 Super Bowls to show for it. That's crazy nasty to think about, but they've run into Patrick Mahomes, and it is in the last 2 of these Super Bowls, just as the Buffalo Bills have. And that's what makes dynasties great. And that's what stopped Peyton Manning in the Indianapolis Colts was Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. But the thing that is incredibly hard to do, and I don't think that, like, we just get lost in Patrick Mahomes is great, Andy Reid is a phenomenal coach. What every great dynasty is forced to do is to rebuild itself and put itself in a new image. And they did that this year on the defensive side. And this is the year that was not supposed to happen because of the fact that Patrick Mahomes has the highest cap number in the NFL. $37 million against the cap. And they went through and they rebuilt that defense and they became a defensive-oriented team. And if you look at the way that game played out last night, the defense made so many plays over the course of that game where you went, holy crap.
And remember
they
what
were treading the water.
To start this season. The first 5 weeks of the year, the Lions go into Kansas City and win. Eyebrows are raised. Now, I think a lot of that was because people didn't realize how good the Lions were going to be. But another part of that was that Kansas City offense looked terrible.
Yeah.
It looked dysfunctional. You're sitting there watching it going, what is this? This is a Patrick Mahomes-led team. And we've seen this before from the guy that he's chasing in Tom Brady and the Patriots. The change from the Randy Moss Patriots to the defense first, run the ball, play action Patriots that just grind you into dust in the playoffs. And that's what the Chiefs did. You watch that game. Look, as much as I think that middle third of that game was ugly as sin, it was made ugly by the Chiefs defense. Both
defenses just played out of their gourd.
I mean, starting the second half, the 49ers come out and throw 6 straight passes. And I'm sitting there going, Shanahan, no, not like this. Kyle, no, not like this. Don't go out like this. And it was because the Chiefs said, we're going to flood the box. Good luck. And Spags just got in his bag the entire second half. Flustered Purdy, flustered the running game, flustered Shanahan, everything they wanted to do. And you just had individual play after individual play. The only real boneheaded play coming on the holding on the was it third and
the defensive holding against Jennings.
Yeah. And that other than that, the execution by the defense the entire second half was near flawless.
It was one of those games that is an all-time Super Bowl, just the way that the whole game played out. And from the very start of it, it was, okay, this game is going to get weird. You have Christian McCaffrey fumbling on the opening drive as they're approaching the red zone.
The guy who never fumbles. And I will say, the 49ers script to open the game was fantastic. They were gashing the Chiefs to open the game.
And then plays like that happen because Super Bowls get weird. And to put that McCaffrey fumble into perspective, it had been 185 carries since he last fumbled. He's fumbled 4 times on the year total. And the last time he did it was in October. And he's carried the ball 185 times since then. And I think on average for the season, it was like 1 in every 82 and a half attempts he fumbled the ball. Yet on the opening drive of the Super Bowl, as you are gashing the defense, and Kyle Shanahan had scripted that to perfection, you come out and you fumble as I think he was on the 27-yard line.
Mm-hmm.
And that was turning point number 1 in the game.
I had to do the math on this real quick. I knew he didn't fumble, but when you think about his touches, he has, in his career, regular season only, this does not include playoff touches, he has 1,806 touches, receiving and rushing. He has 12 fumbles.
Dude doesn't fumble.
That is less than, that is 0.006%.
But then you
that's insane.
But
man, this guy doesn't fumble ever.
And here's the beauty about it is that the defense came back and they showed up because what ended up happening? San Francisco's defense forces a 3-and-out. This much maligned defense that everybody had been criticizing it. Everybody had sat there and said, hey, they're getting gashed by Jordan Love and the Packers. They're getting gashed by Jared Goff and the Lions. Patrick Mahomes is going to cook them. 3-and-out. On the very first drive of the game where Andy Reid is supposed to be in his bag, and they work through feel a lot better than really anybody else. And I think you could say the same for Spagnuolo if you look at what they did in the second half to start. But as you go down and you look at every turn in this game, like all of these key moments where the first points on the board is an NFL Super Bowl record for the longest field goal ever from
Which was crazy. We talked about heading into this game, like you expect these guys to be good to 50. And maybe they'll stretch a leg out a little bit. 55 and 57, and they were both good from 60 plus.
The shortest Super Bowl record like ever.
2 minutes and 57 seconds or something like that.
And then you have Butker, who has the longest, breaks Moody's record just moments later. But if you look at every turn, it was right after points get put on the board, you get Pacheco fumbles. And what does the Kansas City defense do? They bow their back. They force another punt. And this is why I sit there and I go, yeah, it may have gotten ugly. It may have looked like, low scoring game, not a lot of offense. These defenses at every turn, they answered the bell. The only one that they didn't, in all of the turnovers that we had in this game, which we had 4, the only one that resulted in points was off of the muffed punt. It was off of the muffed punt.
I still think that's, we were talking about in prep for the show, I think that's the thing that's not being talked about enough today on my drive-in this morning and looking at notes and everything like that. Obviously, it's Mahomes in the overtime and how good he was and the inability of the 49ers to score in the second half, blah, blah, blah. That muffed punt, that's the thing for me. That's the football gods throwing the dice against the wall. That's the chaos, because that play is the one that opens the sliding doors for me, because the Chiefs had nothing. They had nothing going. And instead they get what ends up being a long pass play with the punt recovery. And that to me is what gave them their opportunity, their chance, and got them on track.
Boy, it was... I know that they're giving Ray McLeod a lot of flack, and
he should have fallen on it, but beyond that, like that's a tough play to make in the moment.
But Darrell Luter is the gunner who was on the outside. You could see that McLeod was pointing at the ground and yelling, like he was yelling Peter. Obviously, Luter couldn't or didn't hear him. Yeah. Bounces off his foot, and McLeod tries to scoop it up. Like that is every returner's ever
nightmare.
Told, if the ball touches the ground, but it like came firing off his foot, and it was at him fast, so I don't think he had the time to react and fall on the ground properly. But every returner said, if the ball gets touched, you just fall on it. You do not try to scoop it up. You do not try to make anything more.
The ball.
Just fall on the ball in any way, shape, or form. And he didn't. But I think before that, if you look at it, kind of the ripple effects of this game and how the game played out, you had both fumbles early. And then I think the Dre Greenlaw tearing his Achilles as he's trying to run out on the field in the second quarter.
God, man.
One of the most freak injuries that you could happen.
Things you've ever seen.
But that, to me, that was the bigger ripple effect as the game played out, because what Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes started doing is, obviously, we know how good Dre Greenlaw is in coverage, 2 interceptions in the divisional round against Jordan Love and the Packers.
Middle of the field opened up in the second half.
But you were forcing Logan Ryan, who hasn't been on this team for very long, of all.
Got a call at Thanksgiving when he was on a cruise.
He ended up having to play 52 snaps in the slot, defending the slot. The most that he had, I think, before that was like 14. So you're then saying, all right, we're forcing in Logan Ryan. There were 2 plays, mainly the touchdown in overtime that everybody's talking about, but in that play, and then there was another play on a third down in, I think it was like a 3rd and 6 or something, where the Chiefs were in the middle of the field, and he got spun completely around, and you're going, uh-oh.
What is it about Patriots defensive backs and goal line plays?
Well, good or bad. I don't know. But Logan, I think Dre Greenlaw's injury right there, that was a huge one. But then you look at the way that San Francisco was able to win. They won the middle 8 when you think about it. The 4 minutes before the first half ends and the 4 minutes out of the
I was saying that incredibly ugly period, those defenses were nails. Both offenses were atrocious, but because of defensive play.
But it was, I think, wholly defensive play. When you have, and this is where Kansas City is so good, and this is where great teams are so good, is in that middle 8, because those are momentum shifters, especially when Kansas City gets the ball coming out of the break. Holding them to a field goal on that final drive of the first half, that is a win of all wins that you can have. But then you come out on the very first drive of the second half, and you go and you pick off Patrick Mahomes in what was like an uncharacteristic YOLO throw.
That throw was that looked like Zach Wilson. Just you could just see him short circuit and be like, I don't know, and just threw it like. When you see him scramble and you see him extend plays and you see him, like, you can see the process, like where his eyes are, what he's looking, what he's trying to do, where he's looking away from. It was like you could see his body short circuit on the throw. Like he just forgot how to football for a second. And it was so, I remember watching the play and screaming, what does he do? And as soon as he let it go, before you could even see where the ball was going, you could tell that ball was just, what is this? And then you get the Chiefs coming right back.
Yeah. But in that, in between there, you had just a bunch of 3-and-outs.
Yeah.
Right? San Francisco goes 3-and-out. KC goes 3-and-out. 3-and-out, 3-and-out. And then the muffed punt happened. You had a field goal in there.
Yeah.
And then you had a muffed punt. And then from then on, from that muffed punt, we had 7 consecutive drives ending in points. In a game that went from this defensive stalemate where the offense, you could say both offenses were shooting themselves in the foot. I think they were trying to see what works against these defenses, because you went from the script, which we got points early, and then you go off of the script to the bulk of the football game where the defenses were just digging their heels in, and then you saw 7 consecutive drives end with points to end that game. Wow. That is 2 great football teams, 2 just wizard offensive minds in Shanahan and Reed.
2 very good defensive
adapting
minds
to everything that the defenses did. And that's why I think this Super Bowl was fantastic, because of that reason. And then you add in, like, after the muff punt, what does Kyle Shanahan do? They're driving down the field, and that was the ballsiest call of the game, was going for it on 4th down and 3 on the 15-yard line. When you are trailing by 3 points, at that point, it is 13-10. Mm-hmm. You are in the 4th quarter, and Kyle Shanahan goes, screw it. We are going to throw the ball on 4th down, and we're going to put them on the table and say, we're not playing to lose this game. We're not playing to tie. We're playing to win. And so that play for me was the one where I was like, oh, we're going to have an all-time finish.
And we did.
We have a missed extra point, which that loomed large. But I'll tell you this, off of that touchdown that they scored, that missed extra point, the Chiefs are going to win the game, not tie the game and send it to overtime. Because if they're not down by 3, they're going for touchdowns. They're not kicking a field goal. Mm-hmm. And are you betting against Patrick Mahomes in that moment? When Patrick Mahomes got the ball,
considering how that overtime went, no.
11 minutes and 22 seconds to go in the 4th quarter. If Shanahan just says, we're going to play it safe, we're going to tie it at 13, they don't kick a field goal at the end. They go and they try to score, and they try to score a touchdown there. But what we ended up having was trading haymakers back and forth and leading to an overtime where now we got our question marks.